Welcome to the Reimagine You Lab Podcast, where you know that in this space, I am MG, the Reimagined Strategist, and today I have an amazing guest that is here. And before we jump in, you know that in the lab, I always come each Friday, so make sure that you hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Make sure that you share this podcast with your friends, with your families, because in here we are always talking about change. We're doing something new. And the guest that I have today, she has done something new. She's written a new book. And so I would like to introduce you to Meggie Stewart. Meggie, welcome to the lab. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. What a joy it is to be here with you.
Absolutely. So, Meggie, I always like to introduce folks, I always tell folks that I go beyond the bio. And that just means that I am going to give you an opportunity to tell the audience who you are, where you're from, and what you are doing. So, if you would, my dear, let's go beyond the bio and tell them a little bit about you, where you are from, what you do, and a little bit about what you are doing here in the lab today, if you don't mind.
No, I don't mind. Thank you for the opportunity to share. Actually, I was born in Jamaica, in the parish of Clarendon. I moved to the United States 33 years ago. So I'm married for 33 years. I have two children, a 31-year-old and a 27-year-old. So I worked at the pregnancy center, basically listen to people talking every day, which is a precious blessing to be able to help others by listening, so I can help alleviate some of their stress, or they can hear themselves talking and help themselves to make some different decisions if they want to. And I'm also studying right now. I'm doing my master's at Dallas Theological Seminary. So it's a lot of stuff going on. And then I, of course, in the studio because I wish I could say that I really desperately wanted to write a book, because it never dawned on me. I don't know why. Maybe because of my age, because I'm a late starter. But I have to honestly say that I was in a class that was teaching on how to use the Word of God to counsel yourself. And while I was sitting there, I can hear the voice as plain as ever saying, "Didn't I tell you to write a book?" So obviously I don't listen well sometimes, it seems, and I'm getting a reminder. And so I'm like, a book? What book? What about a book? And I'm not sure what it was, but as I opened my binder, there was this title written in the book. So maybe somewhere along the line, I'd write this title. I don't know. And there was that title looking at me. And I'm like, am I supposed to be writing a book? And that's where it got to this point where I am at this moment.
Yes. Well, Meggie, I am so glad that you came in. And we're going to talk a little bit about it, because one of the things that when you were telling me about it and as we were talking about it, I thought it was so interesting, because you said, I was like, well, tell me what the name of it is. I'm always interested to hear about the book. And you were like, well, I'm not part of the story.
I'm not the story. Just part of the story. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, say it to me one more time. And I was like, it's such an interesting title, and how did you land on that? How did you land on that? You've got to tell people the story, because I think a lot of people would feel the same way, right?
Mm-hmm. Well,
how did you land there? I think
you'd have to say I'm sort of a old school kind of young girl. You lady, yeah. I'm not going to say I'm old, because I think when there's health in your body and when you can do your stuff, there's nothing about age. Age has nothing to do with this. But absolutely. I was going to school at the time to study Christian counseling. I wanted to learn how to counsel myself as a Christian, because I'm part of the church, and I can't understand why I go through, there are just so many things. And I wanted to know, how do Christians live differently? What is it about my life that needs to change? Where am I going? How do I treat my husband? How do I work with my children? So as I'm sitting in that class and I'm hearing that voice saying, "Didn't I tell you to write a story?" I knew the voice of God because it has spoken to me several times. As you go read in my book,
Yes.
it'll be a lot of struggle along the way. And so I've grown over the years to listen and to hear. But I can't remember ever hearing him telling me to write a book. So be sitting in that class with over almost 100 people was in that class, which is a massive class. And the
Right.
guy is a great teacher. His name is Dr. Davenport. And I'm sure he doesn't mind me saying it because I think he's one of the best. And I'm sitting there and people are in line trying to talk to him. And I'm sitting there not knowing him so well, but I'm just sitting there. When I heard that reminder, didn't I tell you to write a book? And I'm thinking, how do you write a book? When you're writing a book, you research something comes to your mind. I didn't do any of that. So what am I doing? Anyway, he said, it's time to stop. Just as that same conversation is going on in me, right, sitting in the middle of so many people, which I don't think anybody is here but me. I opened my binder to a blank page. I just opened the binder because it was about to begin. And when I opened the binder, there was the title sitting, or I think it was the title because it's the book I wrote. It says, I am not the story, just part of the story. And I'm thinking, what? And so I could not enjoy the rest of the class. I couldn't wait for the class to be dismissed so I could get home and go to my office, which is sit there, and I'm like, okay, Lord, were you saying something to me? And if that is the title, what do I do next? And I didn't hear a voice this time, but into my spirit, into that part of us women, and most women, you hear the second voice or something and it says 1 Corinthians 6:20. And I thought, what does that mean? So I got my Bible and I opened 1 Corinthians 6:20, and it says, you're not your own. You're bought with a price. And I'm thinking, that verse complement the title, so maybe that's where it's supposed to go. And so that night I just wrote down that lesson, that verse underneath that title, and went to bed because it was after 9:00 that night and I had work the next morning. And that's where it starts for the last 7 years until now when I met you.
Yeah. You know what? That's amazing because, okay, so you're sitting in a class, you hear a voice, you hear a voice, you got the instructors talking, but you're hearing another voice, and then you turn the page.
Yes.
And here it is.
Yes. And I know I didn't write it. I can't remember when I wrote that. I don't know where that came from. It doesn't, nothing. Even now, I'm still puzzled. I'm thinking, did I write that? Where did that come from? Was that written? I said that in that class to myself because I said, gosh, if you tell me what I'm supposed to write about, I'll write. And immediately the guy, Dr. Davenport, says, we're going to begin. And so open up your books. And I open up my binder to take notes into a place where there's only clean leaves. And in the middle of it, there was it on the page.
There was.
I'm not the story, but part of the story.
Listen, I'm telling you, like, there are clues. Like, he leaves clues. We write things down. Like, you know how they tell you when you lay down at night, and
yes,
you dream something, you wake up, the Lord may wake you up and you just write it down. Just have a notebook and a pad, a pen and a notebook on your bedside table, have a pen and a notebook. For a while, I worked as a consultant or an admin assistant for our church. And I just had a pen and a notebook that I would just keep in my purse because you never knew when you might need to capture a note. I've been taking notes forever, like, just all the time. I always write notes. And you don't know when you may have written something down, but you never know when you have to go back to it, when it catches you, when you've got it.
Yeah, that is so true.
And this is your book title. And
yes.
Now you said something though. Now for the last 7 years, you've been working on it. 7 years. Why it took you 7 years?
Because I told myself I'm not a writer. I kept saying, I'm not a writer. When you want to write, you pick a theory, you pick a title, you pick a topic, and then you research it. And I don't have anything to write about. What am I going to write about? But honestly, I could tell you, I would go to work, and I'm working at the same place for 14 years because it's a ministry. It's another story because I was sent there. I've heard, that's why I said when I know God's voice, because he speaks so often. And I know sometimes I must have ignored him, or I must not be a very good listener because I've never heard. It's always a reminder, didn't I? But I remember while I was still contemplating, is this me? Just have this in my head? Should I be writing any book? Because it was very difficult because I work listening to girls who feel like their lives are not where it's supposed to be. And so I'm a listener. Where I work for the last 14 years, I'm a client service director. So I prepare people to listen to people with struggles. And if they feel like they have struggles. So when I come home some evenings, I am so tired. I just want to. So after a while, I would go upstairs each evening because I knew I needed to go up there. Like I know I needed to go to sit. And I must be honest with you. Sometimes I'm on my computer. I'm just chasing rabbits. I see a nice dress or a sales. I may not buy it, but I could spend 3 hours just wanting things. So I didn't write anything. So that's why I think it also takes so long, because I'm not writing something that I am literally composing. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to put down. And some of the stuff I would like to write about, because there's a lot of stuff in my life, was like juicy gossip. And I thought this probably would sell, but I could hear distinctly, take it out. It was about, even if you've been through something, what have you learned from it? And how has it benefited you in your life? It was not about somebody else. It was about me learning how to walk no matter what stages of my life, no matter what I'm going through. And I thought that was very interesting. And I remember specifically one day I was, after I hadn't gone up there for 2 weeks. And I was sitting down and my sister called me the next day. She said, I had a vision. I said, really? She don't know I'm writing a book, because I didn't want to tell anybody I'm writing a book because I don't know what I'm writing about. So you don't really have much discuss what you're discussing. I'm just saying, I go up there, whatever comes to my spirit, I just put it down and put it down. I'm not thinking, I'm just writing. I'm just obedient, but not sure what I'm doing. If you kind of understand what I'm saying here, because I didn't research. I don't know what I'm to research. And she called me the next morning and she said, Meg, I had a vision about you last night. She said, you have a newborn baby, but you haven't fed it for 2 weeks.
What?
And I knew that this was not me trying to write something. I quickly got up and I went to that office and sat down like I hear in news, because I knew something was different. God was doing something with my life that I didn't even understand. All I had to do was obey.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? That's important. I want to sit right there for a second. Because you said something that was important. And a lot of times we don't always lean into, we'll hear something and we'll act on it, sometimes out of, it'll take us a little while to actually do it. We'll see something, we'll get inspired. So you got that note, you were in the class, and wow, okay. I turned the page and it said, I'm not the story. I'm just part of the story. You knew that was God. You immediately acted. So you worked on it a little bit, and then you spend time scrolling and, and I have to tell you, as a matter of fact, I have these chunks. Sometimes I give what I call pro tips occasionally. Yes. And one of the pro tips was, stop scrolling and start scribing. I believe that everybody has a book in them. Everybody does. Because all of our lived experiences are not only for us, but they're for others.
True.
And so, like a lot of times we will scroll and not scribe when we need to be scribing, because, I know that I am a scribe in the kingdom. I've penned too many things. God's given it to me. I have a pen and a notebook in my purse right now, because I just know that he's going to give me something sometimes. I'm going to see something. Somebody's going to say something and it's going to cause me I need to write. So take that note. But then your sister tells you, hey, I had a dream about you. You got a baby that you haven't fed for 2 weeks.
Yes.
Or a baby that you've been working on for 7 years. Just think, what would they would put you in jail, Mega, if you had a baby that you haven't fed for 2 weeks, let alone 7 years.
You're funny. That's so true. It is true. And I know that literally it would be true if I had a real baby. Yeah. But this was God's baby. And I think he understood that I wasn't just a stay-at-home mom. See, I was never a stay-at-home mom. I always worked part-time. And so I guess I focused more on my age, which is something I realized I needed to stop doing. And I think that was what, maybe it's my culture where I was raised, with the family I was raised, because mom told us when we were young, and she was very sickly. She died at 63, very young age. And she always said that we're not going to leave our vicinity where we lived. And I
Mhm.
remember I was always an outspoken child. Is one of the reasons that they thought I was possessed at first. That I always was outspoken, and I said, "Mama, I want to see the person who would stop me when I'm ready to leave." And
Mhm.
actually, I think I was the second one to leave, and from that vicinity. And my life went from there to another parish, then out of the country, and
Mhm.
33 years in Texas, which is another story because I don't know anyone in Texas. That was God again telling
Yeah.
me what I was supposed to do every step of the way. And when I got here, I must say it first, after my babies were born, I knew there was a calling on my life, that God was saying something to me. But I always thought I was in a calling because I'm always helping someone. I always felt like I was here to listen, even if I didn't know what to say. One of my
Yes.
skill was to listen, and I just want to encourage people to listen to others. You
Yeah.
may not have anything to say. You might think you don't have enough to contribute, but listen is a skill. And when you listen to
Yeah.
people and they realize you truly want to listen, you can help people hear themselves talking, and they can make transition that not even you would help them to make. They make it of themselves. I've
Right.
heard girls said to me over and over, that didn't come out right. And I'd say, how did you want it to come out?
Yeah.
For them to
Yes.
correct their own lives. So it is amazing if you can listen. What a blessing. And there's a lot of people who has no one listening to them. They're just telling them what they need to do. And deep within their heart, they're afraid or frightened. They just need someone to hear them out. And by someone listening, they get
Mhm.
to hear themselves talking, and sometimes they will correct themselves. Or at the end of it, they will ask you what you think, and that will give you the power to speak back life into their lives.
Yeah. That's it. That's the power. That's the power in it. And here's what's so important, Meg. You just said something else. Like it's listening.
Yes.
It's listening, and listening is a skill.
Yes.
You listen to that voice. You listen to that voice and what you do, like the work that you do. You said sometimes, like you're a director and you work with people and that have gone through some things,
Hmm.
and so you listen all day. You
Yes.
teach other people how to listen.
Wow.
And then here you've got a whole book
Yep.
that you are sharing how you have listened,
Hmm.
interpreted what God has spoken to you,
Hmm.
how it has benefited and blessed not only your life, but the life of others that you have influenced and impacted.
Hmm.
And it's going to help somebody else. So it wasn't even intended fully for you. It's,
No,
to,
but
it's for you to continue to influence and impact others.
yes, I know now. It's so funny. I was trying to get other people to write it. Like my husband, I thought, this man is a good writer. Maybe he could write it. But then he would say, what am I supposed to write about? And I couldn't tell him because literally I had to sit down to
Mhm.
listen to be able to know what next or what to erase. And I remember God was telling me one day, put this person's story in the book that you're part of the story. And I'm thinking, I don't like to write other people's story, Lord. I'll just ask her to write it herself. And so I called her and I said, look, I'm writing a book. And somehow God want me to write the part of my story in it. Do you mind? She said, no. I said, well, would you like to write your part, please, and send it to me? I guess I was trying to pass it off somewhat to somebody else. I'm telling you, I'm fine. And she said, I will. And she really wanted to, but I think she didn't know what to write. So one night I'm lying down, feeling comfortable because I've paused in the book. That's why the book took so long. I mean, all these things are like,
Pauses.
I took this pause and I was sleeping that night at 12 o'clock, and God waked me up in the night. He said, didn't I tell you to write this book? And I said, well, you told me also add this young lady's story, my part of it in it. And I've asked her to write it and she hasn't given it back to me yet. He said, well, why don't you get up and go write it? So I got up 12 o'clock and I'm done at 3 o'clock
Yep.
writing that chapter. And my
Yeah.
husband got out of his sleep. He said, where have you been? I said, God told me to go write this thing that I'm supposed to write. I'll read it to the girl in the morning and see if it's okay. And he said, let me see what you wrote. He got up, turned the lights on. He said, you just wrote this? And I said, yeah, God told me what to write because I didn't know what to write. He said, man, this is good. Do you know that when I wrote it back to the girl, she said, I wouldn't be able to write that. And the editor said to me, that is the story I love the best in this book.
See? Listen, you listened to the Lord. You acted. You know what? Listen, girl, Meggie, this is what I think is so beautiful. I really I love this because I was talking to a young lady last week,
Mm-hmm.
and she was telling me that she was getting ready to do something, but she was waiting. And I said, "Well, what are you waiting on?"
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "Well, I really don't know." She said, I've just been waiting, just kind of, and I said, "If you're not waiting on anything specific, stop waiting." Like when you get prompted and the Lord gives you something, like just move, like
Mm-hmm.
just take action, like stop waiting. The Lord gives it to you, go with what He has given you, because it's almost like when you take a step, He's going to give you exactly what you need to do, exactly what He's called you to do. So when
Mm-hmm.
you acted on Him saying, hey, just do it. So you just got up and
Yeah.
you penned it. And it's the best chapter in the book.
That's what even the editor.
One of the good ones.
It's so amazing that editor. I knew her mother for years. She worked with me. I helped her, work with her. She volunteered at the center. And so I prepared her to do the same thing we did. And then her husband got sick and she wasn't there for a while, but we always kept in touch. And I thought, she's a teacher. Maybe she will know how to write, what to write. Do you listen to what I'm doing? I'm always trying to pass it off to someone else. And I'm not sure why I was doing that. I just keep telling myself I'm not a writer. What does people write about? I mean, I read books and I don't think I was, in my simplest way, I just thought I wasn't capable to write books like what other people write. I just think you have to have a certain vision, a certain dream, a certain something. Well, what I wasn't paying attention to was God was depositing these little whatever I was looking for that people used to write in me, and I didn't even realize it. So I called her one day, and she's a very sweet lady, and I said, I'm writing a book and I need for you to help me. She said, I'll help you. She's a screamer. She said she always screamed because her entire family were drunkards. And so she said they always talk loud. And she don't mind me saying because she said it all the time.
Yeah.
And she said, let's meet at a restaurant. And she's a beautiful, sweet friend of mine. So we got at a restaurant and I've never been to her house, but I know she had a son, or she still has a son rather, but I didn't know she had a daughter. And we always prayed for her son. But she never mentioned her daughter. And she said, today, though, I'm going away. I'm going out of the country. And I want you to bring what you have. By that time, I think I had about 100 pages of the book. And I said to her, she said, well, I'm going to tell you my address and you just leave it in my box and I'll pick it up later after we left the restaurant. So I came home, got that page, so happy, thinking she's going to take it over. And, she's going to help me. I mean, I'm so excited. She called me back that night and she said, Meggie, I'm reading along with you here. I love what I'm reading. And guess what I'm going to do? My daughter is an editor and a writer, but she lives in Ireland. That's where I'm going. And I am going to pay her to edit your book.
What a blessing.
And I was like, I didn't even think about editing. I didn't think about all these things. Nothing I was thinking about. It's like God went ahead and He had all of these plans and He was thinking them through for me. And it so happened that her daughter called and I thought I was going to pass it on to her. She said, are you done? And I knew deep within my heart it wasn't done. She said, I don't take them until they're done. So I had to go back to my office and there was COVID took me away from work. So I got more time to be able to finish it. And I think that was when I put the most. So for some people, maybe COVID was a wretched and vile, and it's true. But for something, there was a glimmer of hope for me. So COVID gave conclusion to my, I'm not the story, just part of the story.
Just part of the story. You know what? I think COVID had a lot of things that were very pivotal for a lot of people. You know what I mean? Like was, you're always looking for that silver lining, even in something as in tragic things and hard things and tough things. There's always a silver lining, and it had a silver lining for you. So you had time, you had space, you had the ability to be able to get quiet and close in, to be able to take care of it. So talk about that a little bit. Like, what was that writing process like for you? Like being able to kind of close in and talk it through that, and having that, how did your source of inspiration like even change over the years? Like during that time, how was that for you? Like being able to get quiet and have that space and that time? What was that like?
It was awesome. I'm telling you, I started understanding, because then I said, God, why? I asked the question, why are you doing this to me now? Why are you making me right? And he's saying, you're a Calebina. And I said, what is a Calebina? Then I realized I gave it the feminine connotation for Caleb in the Bible. So I went to look up Caleb's life, and I realized Caleb was given the promised land at 40, but then came back with a bad report. And so he never got to the promised land until he was 85 years old. And he had to get the mountain. The mountain was promised to him, but he had to fight 3 giants to get that mountain. And they said, oh, you're old now, we're going to help you. And he said, I am as strong this day as the day God promised me this land. So he's saying, although I'm 85, I am 40. And I said, that's what you're saying. I even said, I must say. I said, but he's a male and I'm not fighting for land. But I said, God, I'm sorry. I'm going to change the trajectory of my thinking, my ways, my actions. And I'm going to start. It was in a beautiful time, because then it was flowing. And then not only that, but now I knew that there was a lady waiting to edit it. I couldn't waste any more time. So whether I liked it or not, I had to. So God made sure all the little barriers that I thought that needed to be established or installed, he did that for me, so that I could be more focused. And I did. And my husband had a little more time to also guide, and I could ask him questions and things like that. But, I knew when it was done. I knew exactly when it was done. And she took it, and it was a beautiful transition from me to that lady. It was just amazing. I had no thought. And so I think what God is saying to all of us, and just think about that. I always thought that I was a very positive, outgoing, faith-based person, but I realized that none of us are perfect. And in that time, I saw all my weaknesses. I saw all my shortcomings. I saw all the things that I needed to work on. Like you're saying, I needed to have a pen and a paper all the time, but I realized I was also lazy. I mean, I used, and so I needed to get out of my lazy, ground, get off that lazy ground, and realize that there was nothing wrong with me. I could do all things, and it doesn't matter what is thrown, what life throws at us. My dad always says, you take lemon and make lemonade. And so even if it was something difficult or seem impossible to me, because we have a God, or I have a God, nothing is impossible between me and God. And so it was beautiful bringing to that conclusion. And my husband was excited. I felt excited. My kids felt excited. I mean, all the doldrum that I had. In fact, at one point I used to come home and watch. My husband was watching Texas Ranger. I love Texas Ranger. I like karate, and I love home movies. So those were my comfort zone. And so I'm sitting down, taking off my shoes. I don't bother go upstairs to look at the book. I just sat down there, and the Holy Spirit came one day when I was watching. I guess it was probably a week or so more in it. Says, didn't I tell you to write a book? It's always that same statement. Did I not tell you to? I said, Lord, this time I had an excuse. I said, Lord, I'm tired. When I come home, I take my shoes off. This is kind of therapy for me. I go and I give therapy, but now this is therapy for me. And he says, oh, really? And I said, I'm so tired, He said, but you're not too tired to watch 3 reruns of... And let me tell you, I never watched another Texas Ranger until this book was completed. In fact, I went to England, and to tell you how great God is, I went to England this Christmas, and my sister could only put on Texas Rangers. We watched several of them, reruns and continuing. And what a beautiful feeling it was, because there was no book to worry about. So God doesn't take away things from you. He just help you to lay foundations appropriately so that your life can come out on the side that he wants it on, versus you dragging yourself and wondering why not. I think I've learned so very much, and to see the sweetness of God's love for us, his patience, his kindness, the temperance that he gives, and the gentleness and the mercy and compassion and the nudging, and you give up on others, and he's taught me, don't give up on anyone. It's just an amazing journey, and I just want to thank him so much. And then I just didn't know who I was gonna ask to publish this book. I am there thinking, Lord, what do I do with it now? I got it back. The lady's done. What am I going to do now? And I remember my son-in-law that God gave me, and he said to me, we're going to pick up my sister from the airport in the middle of that time. And I said, your father wrote a book. publish it. Just like that. It's just out of the blue. And that's how your name came up. And he admitted, he said, I'm going to call her. I said, at this time of night? He said, oh, we're friends. I'm like, are you sure? Well, why don't you wait till another day? And that is how, what a blessing. So I never had to hear also, no, this is not good enough. We can't publish this. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah.
it was so perfectly planned that, and even if I didn't want to finish, I didn't want to do it, I had no choice. It's like I was just being pushed
Yeah,
when I didn't want to.
when there's a vision, then it's like all the provision like lines up with it. I believe um in fate, in destiny. When it's there, like it is all there. Like it
Mhm.
all comes together. It aligns, it lines up, it is
Mhm.
there for you. And when we get out of our own way, I
Yes.
believe that it's there for us. Like
Yes.
God makes it, he makes it sure. He puts it together. He tightly wide wraps it up, puts a bow on it, and gives
Mhm.
it to us. It's his gift
Yes.
to us.
Yep.
And I love it. And I love the story. I love the whole thing. Like it is so meaningful. This is everybody who's listening in right now. I'm telling you, they can tell by the vivaciousness that you have in your voice, the excitement, the thrill. They know that it's going to be a good work. Like this book, you guys, I'm not the story, just part of the story. It will bless your life. It
Mhm.
will touch the very hearts of people. It will encourage them. It will let them know that they can be that on their journey, that they can complete it too, and make the commitment to yourself. You
Mhm.
have to make the commitment to you. And that's what you've done, Meggie. That's
Yes.
all when you make the commitment to you, God has already made the commitment to us. He
Mhm.
already has. You just have to make the commitment to you. And once you
Mhm.
do that, he's right there behind you. He supports
Mhm.
you. He covers you. He encourages you. He
Yes.
even says, hey, if you would sacrifice watching Texas Ranger right now, on the other side, I will make sure that you get all the Texas Ranger that you want. He will make sure. He will make sure that you have all that your heart can hold. He'll make sure. He will. He will not leave you depleted or without. He'll make sure. That's the
Mhm.
kind of God that he is.
Yeah.
So, guys, I want you to make sure that you can go to meggastewart.com. You can pre-order the book. The book is available now. You're able to go to the website and grab a copy of it. Mega is actually going to be doing a release event. The date has not been announced yet, but it is coming soon. So you can actually, if you are in the Houston area, you can plan to attend the event. It's going to be as soon as it is announced, you will be
Yes.
able to check her out.
Yes.
She's got some more interviews that she's going to be doing. So make sure that you tune in. But go and grab a copy of the book, listen to her story, definitely engage with her. She's an amazing young lady. The book is phenomenal. You'll be blessed by it. You really will. And you can bless others with a copy as well. Meg, I always like to ask, because it seems like our time just goes so quickly here.
Yes.
But I want to make sure that we, before we close out, what is the best piece of advice either that you've gotten or you certainly would like to share here in this process and your experience? What would you like to share with others before we go?
I think I would like to say to each other, think of others every time. I had a mentor. I always had mentors, people who literally spent time giving me some of their listening ears. And I would just want to encourage everyone to find someone, not your best friend, not somebody that you talk to, someone that you think needs someone to listen. Find a friend or make a friend of someone new, whether it's church or at work. Don't see the outside, the just the covers. See them as a person that may be going to someone, just needs someone to listen and listen to someone. I think that's what I'm encouraging everyone to do around me. Is just take some time to listen to someone.
Listen to someone else.
Yes.
Megan, that is awesome.
Thank
Thank you for coming into the lab today. Love you. I will definitely make sure that we bring you back. This has been amazing. You've got me pumped up and fired up for the day. I'm loving it. I'm flying right now.
you.
Uh,
Wow.
Such an encourager. All right. Well,
Thank
this
you so
has
much. It was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you in this. You're such an amazing lady. Thank you so much. What a
Thank
pleasure.
you.
You again, that God just connect. This is beautiful. I thank God so much. This is awesome. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Stay with me 1 second. All
Okay.
right. Well, you guys, thank you for tuning in to the Reimagine You Lab podcast, where we come in and we talk to those who make change. This is Meggie's very first book. And so she is now changed into a new author. That's something that she can add to who she is. And just like you can reimagine and do something different, be something different, become who it is that God has called you to be. So thank you for tuning in today. Know that every Friday we drop a new episode. So make sure that you come back on next week, because we will have another phenomenal someone joining us in the lab. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. We would love to have you as a subscriber. We are trying to get to our 20,000 followers on our page. So make sure that you join us and help us out. And we look forward to seeing you here next week. God bless you, and I'll see you next time.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.